First of all, my name is Jeremiah Bogenhagen, and I am the Colorado Association of Fairs and Shows president. And I want to thank you guys all for joining us again tonight as we navigate through this mess of trying to figure out what to do. So just a few things. Please, everybody mute yourself, mute your phones, mute your, use mute on the Zoom so that we can we don't have all the background noise. And tonight we're going to hear from a few different people. We've got the Commissioner of Ag, we've got the International Association of Fairs and Shows and Expositions, the Colorado State Fair. So with that, Michael, I'll turn it over to you and have at her.
Thank you, Jeremiah, and thank you to everybody who's joining in. I'd like to first introduce to you Kate Greenberg, our Commissioner of Agriculture for the state of Colorado. Kate was appointed to serve as Colorado's Commissioner of Ag by the governor in December of 2018. She provides leadership and direction to the Colorado Department of Ag and its 300 employees. Commissioner Greenberg has worked in agriculture for more than 12 years, from boots on the ground experience to advocating for farm families through 2 federal farm bills. As commissioner, she serves on numerous boards and commissions, including the Colorado Water Conservation Board, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and the Colorado State Fair Board. She, like many of us, is sheltering in place during this pandemic, calling Durango, Colorado her home. Thank you for being with us, Commissioner.
Great, thank you so much for that introduction, and really grateful to be with you all here tonight. Gotta say, I appreciate some of these backgrounds that you all have on your Zoom. It's been a highlight of the stay at home time in our lives. So anyways, I just want to give a brief background about essentially why I'm here tonight, and then a brief update from the Department of Ag, and Scott Stoller is here with us from the State Fair. And then I really just want to open it up for questions and conversation. So the reason I'm here is to have a dialogue with you all in advance of the start of fair season, and really find out what you need in terms of guidance or clarity from us. And by us, I really mean the state. The Department of Ag can help be an advocate for what you need, help get you clarity and guidance. But of course, we have to work through our partners through CDPHE and others at the State Emergency Operations Center in terms of what moving forward looks like. That's the same is true with our local public health agencies. We work closely with them, of course, throughout this whole COVID experience that we're all going through, and want to make sure that we are opening up lines of communication with you all, with each of your fairs, with the association, and with state and local public health. So that's really my goal tonight, is to hear from you what you need from us so we can get you clarity in advance of fair season. So just a few updates I want to offer from the Department of Ag as a whole, and certainly invite Scott to jump in and fill in any gaps on the State Fair side. Of course, like everyone, we're figuring out what every day looks like as we go, and that is very true of the summer months. As we've moved out of the stay-at-home order into the safer-at-home phase, we're of course working through a lot more nuance about what the coming months are going to look like. At the Department of Ag, we have been operating on a telework capacity for really since the middle of March. The vast majority of our staff are working from home. Our field staff, many of them have suspended a number of our field services, but we're starting to plan how we get back out into the field safely. So we've had a pretty almost whole continuity of operations throughout COVID-19. We've got a number of different entities that I've set up within the department, made up of our staff who are responding to COVID-19. And I say this, it may or may not be relevant to your fairs per se, but just to the ag community as a whole, want to let you know what we're doing and ways to plug in. So we've got a number of teams. We've got a team focused on food security and supply chain issues. So that team's working on everything up and down the food and ag supply chains, identifying problems, working to resolve them, and recruiting the right folks through the right channels to solve problems quickly. We've also got an ag recovery team. So from, gosh, I think about 5 or 6 weeks ago, kind of in the heart of COVID, or at least what felt like the heart of it during stay at home, we established the ag recovery team so we can make sure we're setting up recovery in the midst of the emergency and thinking about how do we support agriculture, not just through the immediate emergent event, but well beyond as well. So that's something we have ongoing, and actually for the next 3 days, we have an open invitation to anyone to submit their ideas for what ag recovery looks like, or what you'd like it to look like, and where we can be putting our focus. On our main page at colorado.gov/ag, we've got where you can submit your ideas, or anyone in your membership. So we're kind of building this statewide collaboration about how do we move through this together, how do we come out stronger, and in the meantime, how do we get nuanced in managing and maintaining the heart and soul of what we do, in this case our shows and fairs, while operations look different. So that's a little bit about what's going on at the department. Hopefully, if you guys interface with us in any capacity, our hope is that we have been able to provide the same level of service from afar, even though you might not be coming into our building. And that's our commitment moving forward. So of course, when it comes to the state fair, there's a lot of questions on the table about what it's going to look like. And as I think it was maybe in one of our recent state fair board meetings, we were working through what late August, early September might look like. And really got to thinking, well, this is probably on every single person's mind who operates a fair, who shows at a fair, who works with 4-H and FFA and needs to guide their kids through what this year is going to look like. So that's when Scott helped organize this meeting tonight. And so we really don't have a template for this. I think we're in the same boat as you, and are likely going to learn from you as well as we move through what the 2020 state fair is going to look like. So I certainly see this as a partnership, an ongoing partnership. Scott, is there anything that you want to add this evening? Anything that I missed that might be helpful for the group here tonight?
Yeah, I'll just, I have an agenda item later, but I'll touch on a few things that I think are important for the group tonight to kind of let Kate hear or ask for help with. A lot of us are looking at when we need to make our decision. And for us at the State Fair, we're looking a little bit over 60 days. I would assume some of you are right around there. Some may have a little bit more leniency depending on how many different contracts you have. But I would ask all the fairs on this call today to share, probably best through chat, and MJ or Angie could ask the questions just to keep this flowing. But kind of share where you're at, what you think you need, and I would think that Kate or Commissioner Greenberg, I'm sorry, should be able to hear this and take it. She is a member of the cabinet for the governor, and she can communicate on behalf of all the fairs in Colorado to try and help give us some guidance. And if we need public health guidance that tells us that we can't have events more than 30 days out, that might be something that she hears tonight. Or if you don't want that guidance, please share that. So I would suggest some type of dialogue right now so Kate can go back to the cabinet very well informed on the position of Colorado Fairs.
Yep, that's spot on, Scott. Thank you. So I guess with that, would love to just open it up and to hear your thoughts along the lines of what Scott brought up, and anything else that would be helpful for you that I can help, bring up the chain.
Quiet group.
Kate, I'll kick this off real quick. One of the questions that I know seems to be going around is, when it comes to groups gathering, right now I think the laws are stating groups no more than 10, and I'm expecting that to go to around 50 and stuff. What do we see? Do we see this something that's going to be changing so that we can be allowed to have fairs?
Yeah, I think that's a big question mark and what that will look like as we move through the summer. I know, concert venues and so many other, facilities are thinking about the same question. There's going to be, the governor yesterday announced a timeline for when he's going to make sort of some of these next big decisions. May 25th is a big day for, restaurants, spring skiing. June 1st is another date when he's going to be making more decisions. So I don't actually have an answer because nobody has an answer now, but those dates are going to be trigger points. So it'd also be helpful to know if those dates are too late for anybody, like June 1. A lot of you are getting ready, right, for fairs coming up. Does that give you enough window of time to be able to plan, or do you need more guidance before that trigger point?
Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat that there's a lot of that. When will they be allowed? And when can we know? Because that's really going to affect our planning. And I do think that June 1st is starting to push it for a lot of these fairs. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So is the livestock show and exposition and the livestock sale portion of fair considered the same as all agriculture and receive the exemption that is offered as an essential industry?
Yeah, great question. So under the original stay-at-home order, when we got that first list of essential industries, livestock markets were essentially considered part of the ag supply chain, if you will, sort of the ag industry. And what we did was really encourage our livestock markets to limit the in-person markets to buyers and sellers. So folks don't come for coffee or for meals or to catch up, and it really reduced the number of people who were on site. That hasn't changed. Not to say that it might not change. It might change, who knows, but currently as it stands, the sale portion has been operating under the critical infrastructure definition. And we would just ask that, as we move forward, that folks continue to think critically about how to minimize the number of people in the vicinity during the sale.
Thank you.
Kate, if you have enough room, this is Byron Pelton, Logan County.
Hey, Brian.
If you have enough room, or even if it's an outdoor thing, as long as you have enough social distancing, you should be able to have a sale or even a livestock show, because like you said, it is under agriculture for sure, because all those animals, at least at our sale, that's at the sale, are all it's like all kill sales. So I mean, they're all going to be in the food chain. So as long as if you have it outside or even in a venue that's big enough, as long as you have the social distancing, you should be okay, correct?
That's that would be my understanding currently. Of course, if there's local public health on the phone, we'd of course run this by, if you're a fair working on what your game plan is going to be, certainly work with local public health. But from the state perspective, that is how we have been operating under the critical ag infrastructure. Yeah. But Commissioner, to that point, I think, I'm noting all these, and maybe Scott can help me too, so I don't miss anything, of things to verify, just to help get clarity as well.
That would be a good idea, because I think for the most part, you're going to have, the problem you're going to have, Kate, is that if you don't have the livestock sale or the show at these county venues, somebody's going to have them in their backyard. So you're going to have it one way or another. So that's what I'm saying is, if we have it big enough and like our exhibit center is big enough, we should be able to social distance and that sort of thing. And some of these county fairs, like where I grew up in Cheyenne Wells, theirs was outside. I don't know if that's changed or not, but that could be the case in both those places.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Some of the other questions, continuing on, we are seeing that June 1st is kind of pushing it for a lot of fairs, and some fairs are okay with that. But so I think that as you go back to everything that sooner date that we can have as a fair industry, as to when large crowds can be gathering, I think is going to be better for all these fairs.
Yep.
If a 4-H group uses concession stands as fundraisers at fairs, what guidance do you have on this? Also, I've been told the health department isn't taking applications at this time. So do we know if there's a date when the health department will again start taking temporary licenses?
Oh, was that part of the same question?
Yeah, as
Okay.
far as like concessions and things like that go.
Oh, I see. Okay. Good question. I don't know those answers, but we will work on getting those to you.
I can jump in on the health department question because we've had some experience with this. If your county health department's not issuing you temporary permits for food or alcohol, that's the guidance from your county. So that's them telling you, no, you can't do it. But as everything right now, the guidance only goes out 30 days. And I think right now it's only going out till the end of May. So you just kind of have to be in communication with your county health folks. But that's a definite no if they're not giving you a permit.
Yep. And I think, the takeaway from this is talk to your county public health, hands down. Just have, if you don't have it already, just open up lines of communication with them, and it'll hopefully make life easier as we move through these questions.
All right. A few more questions we'll take here. Uray County only has 11 4-H members. We never have entertainment or vendors. If we could move to an online sale, that would be great. We are having issues getting buyers to attend due to our fair being Labor Day weekend. That's just a comment. Is there any rules on the amounts of spacing for vendors? I don't think we've seen that come through yet. I think it's going to depend on social distancing and your county public health.
Right. Yeah, and an example of that is what we've seen with farmers markets, where they have, they haven't necessarily assumed that they've been able to operate, and in some places it's been tenuous. So one thing they have done is taken it upon them to distance their vendor booths to try and maintain as much of that 6 feet minimum distance as possible between both vendors and their customers. So that wasn't a requirement, but it was sort of getting out ahead of the curve and making the decision on their own to try and, avoid a mandatory situation.
Okay.
Kate, this is Byron Pelton again, Logan County.
Yep.
My understanding from the public health order and the safer at home order is still that you can't eat on premise. I mean, that's kind of what we're going to be getting into with our vendors. So you might want to get clarification from that, because the golf courses are having a real heck of a problem with, they can't consume alcohol on premise and they can't eat on premise because you can buy alcohol and take it home and consume it there, but you can't consume it on premise. And it's same with the food as well. So that's something else you might want to get clarification on.
Yep. Great point. Thank you.
Amy, Kelly, did you have a question? I've seen her hand raised. To clarify, 4-H and FF livestock sale would fall under critical ag. The way we're seeing it right now, if I'm correct, that's what you're saying. It is continuing to fall under critical ag from the Perceptive now.
Yeah, that has not changed. So, as of right now, this very moment, we are operating under that premise. Yes.
Okay. Somebody said there are many aspects to fairs: livestock shows, exhibits, commercial vendors, food vendors, carnivals, entertainments, events. All of these should be considered in what is acceptable for holding a county fair. That is correct. And we have a lot of other speakers that I think we're going to answer and touch on all those different subjects there. Would 4-H still need social distancing?
So Oh, yep. Ashley, are you there?
Hey, yeah, I would
Hey.
say, some of these 4-H ones like that, I mean, we can definitely address those when we get into the extension part of it. So I'm going to make sure we cover all the ones, though, that are for Commissioner Greenberg, too.
Yes.
Great.
Does
Thank
anybody
you.
else have any specific question for Commissioner Greenberg? Thank you, Commissioner. Michael, I'll let you take over again here for a minute.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner, and I will print off the chat questions and give them to Scott to get them to you. So to my colleagues, be careful what you send to me in private chat because she'll get to see them. Next, for CSU Extension, we have Dr. Ashley Stokes, who is the Associate Vice President for Engagement and Deputy Director of CSU Extension. She's responsible for food and ag system initiatives, fostering applied scholarship opportunities, and developing strategies for university-based extension that broaden and deepen engagement across CSU's 8 colleges. And joining her will be Jean Glowacki, who is our Director of 4-H Youth Development for CSU Extension. Prior to her role, she serves as a 4-H Youth Development Volunteer Specialist, providing support and leadership for creating and maintaining a volunteer program for 4-H agents statewide. Ashley and Jean, thank you for joining us tonight.
Great, thank you. And thanks to Commissioner Greenberg for taking the time to be with us today and to provide information that's really helpful. Well, it's great to see everybody again. I know, I guess it was about a month ago that we gathered last time and discussed a lot of these things. And I know it was really helpful for us to hear the questions, but also hearing just where our counties are, where the state fair is, and the decision processes and everything going into that. So that was really helpful to us. It really helped us to compile that information and then be able to work with CSU on main campus and through the president's office and being able to address these. So I appreciate that. We've received a lot of feedback and information from our county partners and from fairs and shows. So appreciate that. So just wanted to provide you a few updates from the CSU aspect of things. Well, first and foremost, our partnerships are core to who we are and what we do, and kind of start to finish. So that's been a major driver in us, looking at the best way for us to be able to be in step with our counties and, with our communities locally, as we kind of unratchet all of these restrictions that we've had to all go under, and for public health and for the safety of our community. So we respect the decisions that our counties have been making. I know that they're working really closely with their public health officials, and that's exactly what has helped us the most in being able to formulate our plan moving forward, is because of how much work that our commissioners and our local communities, how much they're working with their public health officials. And so that's been really excellent. So at CSU, we are still working remotely in a lot of regards for campus, but across the state, as our counties have been able to reopen their doors in many places, again, following that local public health guidance, we've been able to be in step with much of that. And so that's been really good. And again, that partnership is critical for us. So the Colorado Department of Higher Education has stated that that for instruction, that we need to be doing that virtually. So we need to use online resources to do that. And so Extension's been operating in that way, and actually with a lot of great success in offering things online. But we definitely recognize that there are elements that that cannot really be done very well like that, and we know that. And so as the public health restrictions start to ease up, especially in counties where they haven't had cases, or or as things are kind of easing up there, that we want to make sure that we're again in step with our counties with that. So what we've done is working with CSU, with the president's office, and being able to lay out what our plans are, so that we can remain as strong partners, especially as we're talking about with FAIR. And we recognize that some things can be done virtually, and there are some things both during the fair itself, but also in preparation, that really cannot be done virtually. And so this is actually kind of hot off the presses, that in working with our president's office, that through May 15th, we've had a very strict policy of no face-to-face programming and of any kind with that. And that's been very strict. And that's in line with what we were getting from Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment and from the Colorado Department of Higher Education. So looking out past this week, we've been asking the question of, what's going to be the best approach so that we maintain safety, and then, but also allow for, some activities that just cannot be done virtually. So what we received actually just a little bit ago is that that we will be able to do some very limited face-to-face work that, with our communities for things that just cannot be done virtually. And so we're going to be working with our county offices on exactly how we're going to go about that. So we'll be following the public health recommendations from the local public health. So within each county, we'll be working with them and to understand exactly what those rules are. So like the question I saw a minute ago about, does 4-H have to follow social distancing? Yeah, so if a county has that in place, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's any place in Colorado that we don't have social distancing occurring, or using safety measures. And, the way that it's lined out from the local public health, we have to stay in step with that. That's what drives us, because ultimately safety is most important for our communities. So, so some of the examples that from many counties have been, for example, no more than 10 people involved in this type of activity. That's pretty common right now. We fully recognize that might kind of unratchet a little bit more to where we can have more people, and we'll look at that when those occur. But for right now, most of our communities are with that 10-person limit. Now, there are some really creative ways to be able to still have showings, still have sales, things like that, with really limiting the number of people. And we've seen that. So whether that's virtually or just limiting the number of people that are going to be involved, directly with those different points in time to make it happen. So, so Extension as a whole, we will continue to do most of our programming is going to be online and virtually. But where there are some elements that we really just cannot do in that way, we'll be able to work within the county guidance for each county on how that can happen. And so this pertains with our volunteers as well, right? Our volunteers are very much extension of who we are, what we do as CSU Extension. So, so that pertains to them as well. So, so from the CSU standpoint, again, the decisions for fairs, of course, are going to be made by the fair boards and from the commissioners, and we certainly want to be a strong partner in that. And I recognize that so oftentimes that decision making is going to involve the capabilities of 4-H. I know FFA also is right at the heart of this discussion as well. So, so that's, I think that's the update from my perspective. Jean, are there any things that you want to be able to provide?
No, Ashley, I think you covered every point that that I intended to cover. Especially with looking at our volunteer team and how we provide for protection and safety of volunteers who might be in a vulnerable group. We are working county by county. As more counties make decisions, county commissioners and fair boards or make progress into making decisions about their fair, we're working individually with county agents and teams to provide guidance on how we can make any of the activities and events possible in the safest way and still be under CSU's guidance. So that is great to hear that we'll be able to do some limited face-to-face after May 16th. I know agents will be pleased to hear that, and I expect that we'll be talking with a lot of county agents in the next few days about that and how to move forward. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, again, I mean, the things that we can do virtually, it's actually been really incredible. We've had great success with offering many things virtually. And so, I'm hoping that's also helpful when we talk about state fair and what we can do there. But there's a fair bit we can do. And I see the comment in here that says if fairs aren't able to highlight agriculture through fairs, this doesn't help the industry and give public confidence in the food chain. I know one thing we've really done, and we're happy to continue this, but we have really increased our social media presence, and it's incredible how many people across Colorado are really tuning in that we haven't reached before. So it's really pretty exciting. And so if there are some ways that using things like social media and being online, that we can continue to advance agriculture, and many of the things that we highlight with FAIR, I mean, that goes beyond the 4-H aspects of showing in particular. But when we think about positive youth development, we think about the promotion of agriculture, and many of the things that are associated with FAIR, we can continue to still do that. And like I said, it's been really effective, and the reach that we've had through the many channels that we have. So we're happy to continue in that aspect, and definitely to make it a really positive experience for our youth and their development, their leadership development, and then with the sales too, and the contributions that has for them. So yeah, hopefully that's kind of a good way to move forward and to think about this broader scale.
So a question I have, I guess, is a lot of young people's first experience with agriculture is through a local county fair and not through social media. It's good that we're having outreach through social media, but a big question I have for all the presenters on this is, will we have a fair? I mean, that's a big question everybody has. Are we going to be allowed to have a fair, and can we provide these young kids with that experience? Because being out and touching and feeling and taking care for an animal is a huge deal that provides a lot of responsibility and just great experiences in the ag industry for these young kids. And will we have that? Can we provide that this year?
That's a great question. And I mean, we're in the same boat with y'all on that. I mean, the decisions really lie with I believe it's through your commissioners and fair boards, and we definitely want to be strong partners in that, so that whatever is going to be best for each county and then for the state based on the public health recommendations. I mean, we want to do everything we can to make it the best fair possible and the best experience for those youth. So there's no question with our commitment to that and wanting to do that. And that's, that goes back to my comment that it is a big decision, and we respect this decision from our community leaders. And so, we want to continue to be a partner, because we do want this to be the best experiences possible for those youth and for everyone that is a part of the fair in various ways. And so the ways that we contribute to that, absolutely. And my comments about going virtual with it, some places in some of our counties, they may not really be able to have, any of these face-to-face, or it might be extremely limited. So how can we use some of these other virtual ways of doing it so that we can still have positive experiences for these youth and for community members where we have those kind of limitations that are taking place? So I think we're trying to really position ourselves as 4-H and as CSU Extension in a way that that we can really contribute to make it as good as we can in partnership with our communities. So because it is a big decision, and I definitely, you know, for our commissioners and for fair boards, I know it's a tough decision to make, but we will do our best with that. And so I know previously it was pointed out that we will come back strong, and our communities do come back strong. We're very resilient, and so I'm sure it's going to look different this year, but we'll do everything we can.
Ashley, one of the questions here is CSU going to be able to help accommodate for a virtual show or sale? Is CSU working on maybe working with these county fairs to accommodate and help them produce these shows?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to let Jean, I know Jean has worked a lot on that, so I'll let Jean hop in on that.
Sam, are you on?
Yes.
I'm gonna let Sam respond to that. He's been working with agents from around the state on discussing that and providing for opportunities to prepare, and then also what some possibilities are and what lands within the scope of extension and what doesn't, but how we can support any efforts. So Sam, I'll let you share the latest discussion on that, please.
Sure. You know, I think I mentioned on the last meeting of this group that certainly the partnership between the local extension office and the county fair is a very long time and solid partnership. And yes, 4-H can support the avenues of virtual shows to an extent. But those shows and sales really fall back on those fair boards and those county commissions to one, determine how they're going to operate, two, figure out what the resources are available to make them happen. And then once those are decided, then we in Extension and 4-H can come to the table and say, this is what we can help coordinate or what we can help offset a little bit. And that's going to vary a little bit from county to county, depending on how involved or less involved the county office is in the fair. So I really think it's just a case-by-case scenario. Yep, we'll be there to support you and work with you, but as long as it falls within our auspices and our realm of what we can and should be doing as CSU Extension. We're not CSU Extension in charge of fairs. We're CSU Extension in charge of a 4-H youth development group that participates heavily in your county fairs, and we certainly want to do what's best in the interest of our 4-H members, but we also want to keep them safe, keep our agents safe, and keep our partnerships moving forward with the counties.
Thank you. Another question, even if the commissioners and fair boards decide to go ahead with our fair, CSU and 4-H will still have to follow, quote unquote, our guidelines or your guidelines. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this goes back to whenever we're looking at having, so if a fair decides that for some of the livestock showing that they need to have that in person there, and their public health guidance allows it, we will work with what the public health guidance is for that. So like I said, some communities haven't had cases, right? It's going to look different for our different counties. And so we'll be working with our counties and what those local public health officials are saying. And we will do that. So that's really how we're focusing this very much on our county partnerships with it. So that's our approach.
Okay.
Can I,
Jeremiah,
sorry,
Go ahead.
can I interrupt here real quick?
Ashley, do you mind if I add to that?
Okay, yeah, sure.
I think it's important to keep in mind too on that question. All of you know that it takes an awful lot to go into a fair, and pre-planning has to happen first. Several of you were talking or chatting about June 1st or May 18th as dates when Commissioner of Ag was on here. That's something important to keep in mind. If you have a fair coming up and you guys have chosen a direction and a week or 10 days ahead of it, the health department changes things in your county, The extension office cannot just flip on a dime and rewrite everything that they've done. You've got to have some planning ahead and work with them on that. If you have that situation, please don't attack your extension office when they're unable to make that immediate pivot. When we're looking at the changes we're making here in my county, there are huge things we're trying to adjust, and we would not be able to do that in a few days.
So,
May I ask a question from the field?
yeah, to follow up here, sorry, this is going back to my question I had before Michael started speaking there. I guess what I'm getting from this is that the state and CSU is leaving it up to the county, the commissioners, and the fair boards to go forward with a fair or not go forward with a fair in cooperation with the local health board. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's that's always been delegated to them for those decisions. I mean, we're definitely a proud partner very much in what happens in our fairs. But I mean, that's always been the case, that it's up to the counties, and it's, either the commissioners or the commissioners with their fair boards that make that kind of decision. So yeah.
May I ask a question from the field? This is Roger Partridge, Douglas County Commissioner. Hello, Dr. Stokes. Nice to see you.
Good to see
Hope
you.
you're doing well. Thank you for all the information. As we know, all of us leaders on the call, we all are in a situation of getting asked questions, and it's interesting. We are asked questions what we can do, and we give the answers what you can't do. So we know that's what we're up against. So I'm going to ask if you would take this proposition to give us direction, because right now we do know what we can't do. So I'm wondering if, and I'm going to look at maybe base this in a couple of weeks, so either May 25th, June 1st, because hopefully we'll have some changes. We have the attitude of can do. So it's not if we're going to have a fair, it's just what's going to be. That's already our decision in Douglas County. So what I'm going to look at is, it's much easier for me to plan and add to what we can do, as opposed to say, boy, down the line, no, I guess we couldn't do that. So I'm asking CSU, could you put together, with the conditions that exist right now, what would a fair look like? With that, then we had, okay, here's what would be today if we had it today. But as things change, which I'm very optimistic they will, then we can add to. I think that's a lot easier for us to contemplate where we're at right now, because my fair boards asked me, well, how am I supposed to project what July 31st is? I can't expect them to do that. I can't either. So that's why I'm asking. Give me a fair what would look like right now, and then as things change, we can add to. Could you do that?
I think that's a good question. Much of what you can do now, I think it actually really comes from your public health department on those numbers. I don't think it's a CSU recommendation, right? I mean, it's going to be what your public health department allows and what they are looking at with your data on what those projections are. So it's, I would love to be able to kind of design the perfect COVID fair scenario, and maybe hearing from, I believe we have our, from the International Fairs and Shows, also has joined us as well. So maybe there's some insight there, but I don't think that a CSU that we can lay out exactly what's going to work in every county, because it is such a moving target. This is changing each and every day. I see the message in here that the county fairs are the statutory responsibility of the county commissioners. But I think the fair board also, they know what you usually have in your counties. And I think working with them and the public health officials, and we're happy to have discussions. I think our county directors and agents and others are happy to be part of these discussions to talk about what we can and can't do. I mean, I think speaking to Sam's point and to MJ too is I mean, how much we can all pivot. There are going to be some limits here and there. We want to make it the best that we can, but you know, I say it's going to be a collaboration between the public health in each county, the fair board that's going to be there, you know, with the commissioner's oversight, and then, and of course, working with us too, because things such as the virtual fairs or those other aspects on how we can facilitate that and what level. So I do feel like it's more of a collaboration. It's going to have to be, I think, county by county that's going to happen.
This is Jean. I do think that's a really good point, Ashley. And one of the conversations we've been having with county agents is how can we develop some criteria that helps to guide us in deciding what should we pursue as a possible virtual opportunity all the way up to the fair and the competitions that lead to the fair, and what should we be hopeful about and try to pursue as a face-to-face or in-person event. So to the question of what we would do tomorrow, well, tomorrow, with what you just shared with us, we know we have groups of 10 and under, and that we would work with counties based on their health officials' guidelines, and that's going to be different. I've already received from counties differing guidelines on what those are, and we're prepared to work with them to do that. But our hope is certainly that, you know, further into the summer, we go beyond that group of 10 and under. But if we don't, then we'll work to provide opportunities for youth to participate in competitive events and shows that are virtual or that fall within those guidelines. So it's really challenging to figure out exactly what that looks like. And I think county agents are working really hard to grapple with that and come up with solutions for their counties. So we'll continue to do that. And I expect that over the next few weeks, that'll be escalating as we have more and more opportunity to be hopeful about opening up. So that's kind of the path we're on. We're working with agents to set some of that criteria, and happy to share that with people as that develops.
Yeah, and just to follow up with that, you know, I see the comments here that that commissioners in some counties, I mean, ultimately it's the commissioner's responsibilities for fair to make those decisions, and but some counties, the commissioners have then delegated that to the fair board, and that's fine. And so, you know, where extension comes in, I mean, we're here to, I mean, many of the participants, we have 4-H, there's, you know, FFA that's not a part of extension, but you know, we're partners, but at the end of the day, it's up to the counties. And then one thing that actually Commissioner Greenberg and I and Scott had a discussion, and something that came up that I think might address the question that we just saw, is that honestly the expertise for the fairs come from our fair boards, come from this association, and y'all, I think, actually really know these best practices best. You know, if there could be some guidance that could be statewide, I do wonder if this association and the expertise that we have across the state with putting on fairs and shows may have some things that would contribute to things like the vendors types of questions, and working with the health boards, and you know, some of these things. I mean, it was pointed out earlier of how much it takes to have a fair, right? And the 4-H piece is a part of it, and we want to be a great partner in that 4-H piece, but the fair itself is so much larger than that. And so I think a lot of this expertise actually really lies within this association and with the people that are here and those on the fair board. So I mean, it's extension and how we plug into this and how we contribute to experience for community members and for 4-H. You know, we're committed to making that as great of an experience as possible, but the fair is something so much bigger. And I do feel like there's so much expertise here that you have that that really lends to so many of the questions around a successful fair. So that's, maybe that's a question kind of back to the association on, could there be some best practices around all these other aspects that make fair happen?
Thanks, Ashley. Yes, we are working on putting together some information to get out to our members as to how to work together with the public health and stuff like that. It's a slow process because, as you said, every county is different. You know, every county is setting up different things. And so we are working on that and hopefully getting something out to them quickly. I do have one more quick question for you, Ashley. Did you or anybody in CSU help in the decision making in Weld County when they made their decision of how they're going to handle their fair? Was CSU involved in that at all, or was it left up to just the county? Did they?
I do want to see if Keith Maxey might be on.
I am on, Ashley.
Hey, Keith. I just thought maybe you could speak to this a little better.
The decision in Weld County was made by the Fair Board with the full support and encouragement of the Weld County Commissioners. The only things that we have decided thus far on a very high level is that we are limiting our fair to 4-H and FFA competitive events, so no open class type of activities. We will not have any vendors or entertainment, and our fair will be closed to the general public. And we do plan on having a junior livestock sale, but we are pursuing doing that online or virtually. So that was the decision of the Fair Board, and we hope as things go on that if we have the opportunity, I think somebody mentioned that earlier, we hope as things might relax that we can add to that, but that is kind of the bare bones approach that we're taking. And it was, as I mentioned earlier, a decision of the Fair Board.
This is Marv Witt with Larimer County Fair. I have a question for Gene, and it's, I think I know the answers, but I just want a clarification. The final decision whether there's a 4-H events statewide, some people believe that the CSU Extension Service will decide whether there's a statewide 4-H program as far as participation of fairs and shows this year. Is that correct? Is that part of the mandate from CSU Extension Service? I just want a clarification.
Hi, Marv. Can you give me an example of what you mean? Do you mean like the state contests or?
I mean about the fair itself. I understand the contest, yes, I know. But some people have said, well, the Extension Service, CSU Extension Service is going to make the final decision whether a fair can have a 4-H show at their fair. I assume that's wrong, but I wanted to hear it from you or somebody in power tonight to dispel that rumor, if that is a rumor.
I have a very similar question to that in our county. This is Linda in Rio Blanco County. In our county, with the support of the commissioners and the health department and the hospitals, our fair board has decided to go ahead with activities to get ready for the fair. But I work for CSU, and CSU says 4-H, I can't promote this to 4-H. I feel like I'm walking a tightrope here, and I can't really I don't know if I can advertise for our kids to go to this, because there's some CSU saying you can't have the kids get together. The fair board saying, well, we're doing it, and I'm kind of caught in the middle. So it's the same sort of thing. How much you say we're partnering with the county, if we go along with what our commissioners and our county health departments are saying, can we promote it as 4-H kids going to this, or are we going to a completely open fair? That's what I'm getting at.
So Linda, you faded out a lot. I think I get it's okay. I think I get what you were saying, though. It's that dilemma of, you know, the county wanting to really go ahead with participation of 4-H programming or 4-H participation, sometimes a fine line, sometimes not, at the fair, and what CSU is saying. And really, I'd have to, Ashley, to ask you to speak to that, because if I understood you correctly today, that right now, what CSU is saying is that for 4-H programming, face-to-face, we can help counties to set up programming that would be 10 and under, and we can work with them to make sure that it abides by their county's public health officials' guidance. Beyond that, I don't think that we know the answer. Is that right, Ashley?
Yeah, so thank you, Jean. And so I know we have other panelists too, so I'll just do this quickly, but right. So to answer that question, if the public health officials are saying, hey, look, we can have that type of an event, and we can bring people together, we can have 10 people, a limit of 10 people, and be able to have that, or, at the end of the day, what we're trying to really base it on is to follow the local public health guidance. So if local public health guidance is saying that we can have groups come together, we can have parts of the fair, and these are some things that we can't do virtually, then we'll work with our counties to make it happen. So we're not going to say, 4-H isn't going to be a part of that. If the local public health officials say that we can do it, then we can make it work. So that's but again, I think MJ made a really great point, though, that I think we have to be nimble also, and I think we have to have a lot of understanding and trying to make all of this work. I mean, one nice thing I appreciate about Weld County is they've put their information out. It's very clear, and then we can really work with them on that. So that's been helpful. So, but I know that we need to also transition. So I'll turn it back over to MJ.
Can I ask a quick question?
Mike,
real quick before we move on, Mike?
Micah, I'm going to ask you to wait. I have asked Ashley to stay on, and she's willing to answer some more questions from a CSU standpoint at the end. But I need to go to my next panelist because she's got another meeting. So if I can move on to Marla Calico. Marla is the president and CEO for the International Association of Fairs and Expositions, the IAFE headquartered in Springfield, Missouri. The association represents and facilitates evolving interests for its 1,200 members, which are agricultural fairs, exhibitions, and shows from around the globe. And Marla always has an interesting perspective. She gets to discuss this with all states and provinces and countries. And so, Marla, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, MJ. And from one MJ to another, good to see you again. Thanks, everyone. I tell you what, having the opportunity to be here to listen and be a part of your conversations, I'm honored by that. And MJ's correct. I spend pretty much most of every day and every evening on calls with members from around the globe, county fairs just like yours, facing exactly the same situations. If there is one word that describes everything, it's uncertainty. None of us have any answers. And failure and vacuum of a leadership at the top and our federal government has allowed a patchwork of rules and regulations to develop. And I don't think Colorado is any different than most of the states I know. And that is a governor sets a priority and local health authorities, county and city health authorities, can develop something more strict, but nothing less. And so we have to start with that and figure out how we're going to work with that. I don't know that I have any success stories to share with anybody. We haven't seen any successful fair go forward in the era of COVID. We have a lot of fairs that are planning and thinking about it and doing their best to plan for every eventuality. Here's the things that I know. You need to have a great relationship with your county health department. If you are not having those conversations right now, you need to be having them because they will, again, unless Colorado is different than most states, they are going to have the opportunity to be stricter, than your governor's rules. But they also can be the ones that you can sit down and listen to, and you can share, and you can say, for example, here's one of my questions. Let's say we get to the point in phase 2, 3, 4, 10, 20 that we can have 250 people. Does that mean the entire fairgrounds? Or does that mean 250 in each venue within the fairgrounds? Because we know that each venue within the facility is different. So are you having those conversations to talk with your health department to say, okay, if your mass gathering is this much, does this mean our entire event or within a specific? Quite honestly, when I read the news that Weld County was proceeding with a livestock show, I could see how that would happen. I could see how that could work. I think of all of the components of our fairgrounds. If we are allowed some measure of consideration for the number of people, I think that can happen. I love the meme that I've been seeing on social distancing, be 2 lambs or 1 cow apart from each other, right? Think about your show ring. The only thing I haven't figured out, the pigs. I can't figure out how you're going to do social pig distancing in a hog class, but you guys can figure that out. But we can limit the number of people in stands. We can split classes. We can spread out. We can manage the influx of our livestock shows. I think we could give kids an opportunity, but you, the experts in the field, we need to say to our health department, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. Is that acceptable? Then there comes the challenge that I think all of us are going to face, and it's like, where's the money going to come from? What's going to pay the bills? Because I think all of us in the fair business know that it's having the food and beverage, it's having the trade show vendors, it's having the carnival, it's having the entertainment, the paid admission that's going to make the difference. And that's the big question that I don't know that anyone has an answer to. It comes down to, within the restrictions and the boundaries set by your local health authorities, working with your county commissioners, what can you do? What are you willing to do? Where is your risk tolerance? Looking across the country, there is this wide patchwork. For example, in one state, if they don't have a county fair, their property can revert back to the county. In another state, if they don't have some sort of a junior livestock show, they don't get their state monies. So you have to work within the constraints, I believe, of what's most important within your community. So with that, I do have to say, no matter, even if you're within the same state or the same region, each fair is unique. Are you listening to your community? In addition to talking with the health authorities, are you listening to what members of your community say? Are they frightened? Are they hesitant? Are they willing to go forward? What kind of social media communication are you doing and engaging? Are you talking about the fair in positive ways? To me, I have a lot of questions about what you're doing. Sadly, I don't have a lot of answers, and I'm sorry for that. Here's what I can tell you. If it were me, and I was a fair manager many, many years ago, if it were me, number one, I'd be having that conversation with my health department. I'd be talking with my insurance agent and talking about their perceptions of enhanced safety measures that they feel that the fair should be taking to protect the guest. What are you doing to protect your volunteers and your board? If your board and volunteers are like a lot of our member fairs across the country, you have a population that's in that high risk. What are you going to do to protect them? Will they feel safe? Do they want to be a part of that? If you have a carnival, have you had conversations with that carnival already? Will they be able to make it to your fair if they don't have those other fairs that are along their route? What are they planning to do to protect their worker safety? What are they planning to do to protect your guest safety? Those are very, very important conversations that every fair needs to be having with these vital partners and stakeholders. And again, I think listening to the community. From the IFE's perspective, what we're trying to do is to, number one, listen, facilitate conversations, try to look for solutions that we can that would work for the broadest number of members across the globe. We are trying to work with allied organizations when it comes to, for example, funding on the federal level. We are actively working with the lobbyists for the OABA, the Outdoor Amusement Business Association, to see what we can do to potentially secure some federal funding that might be of help for some fairs. Certainly having federal funding that helps the states will eventually filter down to the county as well. And any independent fairs out there that are 501c3s or other 501c organizations, we're currently working to make sure that if you are a C4, 5, or 6, your organization can take advantage of the Small Business Association funding, specifically the Payroll Protection Program, which unfortunately other nonprofits could not take advantage. So we're working on that level. And then finally, for all of our members, we are trying to maintain resources on our websites. Most recently, we just put out a communications toolkit that we believe would help you in messaging, talking about for example, your holding pattern right now, what you're working on, what you hope to do. Oh, sorry about my cat. I'm like everybody else. I have someone here at home with me who likes to join in on the calls. Sorry about that. But we have resources for our IFE members to work on that. I wish I had a crystal ball that I could tell you when this is going to be over and when life would get back to normal. None of us have that. We have to deal with the uncertainty, and that's the hardest thing in the world. But I do know, and Dr. Stokes, you said it, you used the word resilient. Fair folks have been in business and surviving for centuries. I had the great honor to be at the Boulder County Fair last year, celebrating a magnificent centennial, 150, I think it was, years of operation. Commissioner Greenberg was there. We celebrated. And why was that possible? Because there's resiliency within those who support this great agricultural event and those within the community. Your fair is a reflection of your community, and your community will support you. So I applaud you for your diligence in going forward. I celebrate your willingness to figure out a way to go forward. From the IFE's perspective, we want to help in any way that we possibly can. And again, I thank you for allowing me to be a part of your conversations, and I'm going to stay on till the end so that I can hear what's happening, and hopefully we can try to help you find some solutions as well. Thank you all very much for asking me, and MJ, good to see you again.
Thank you, Marla.
Hey, Marla, there was a question here directly for you. Are you aware of any states that are making exemptions for rural versus urban fairs?
I am not. The closest I know that is there are a few fairs who are beginning to consider regions opening up. For example, Virginia, today their governor indicated that they were willing to make some consideration for regions. Northern Virginia is more urban, so they would be more restrictive. But I'm going to tell you, there is, as of this day, no fair anywhere in the United States or Canada has any assurance that they're going to be able to go forward, period. It's just not there. The governor in Oregon has issued carte blanche, no mass gatherings of any sort through September. So there will not be a fair season in Oregon. That's the strictest that I'm aware of in the United States. Quebec has also done the same thing. So I wish I could say there's a difference. I think there's a potential, again, in working with your health department. I think that's a conversation you need to have, and you need to be having that conversation also at the top level to encourage at your state health department and governor's level to consider regional openings, because there are a lot of difference. I'm living it right here in Missouri. Our governor has, in essence, allowed gatherings to go forward as long as social distancing and other health safeties without specifics are taken care of. But there's nowhere in an urban area that's going to take place in Missouri, because each of our county and city health departments has a much stricter guideline. So again, that patchwork. I wish I had an answer, a better answer for you than that, MJ.
Thank you, Marla. Also, would you be willing to expand a little bit on why there is no assurance of any fair?
Because of that patchwork of health authorities. No single health authority knows the answer. And believe me, I would not want to be a county health director right now to save myself, because there is nothing that is certain. And each county that I know of is working diligently to protect the health and safety of their citizens with the resources that they have. And there is simply no assurance that any single governing health authority is going to feel confident. I just don't know. I mean, the governor of Indiana has probably come the closest to setting a date and saying we will go forward, and his goal is that their state will be at the phase for mass gatherings by July 4. But it also comes with that big asterisk, unless we go backwards, unless we have a spike. And that's what all of the authorities, every epidemiologist, every health authority that I'm listening to and trying to pay attention to, just like you are, no one has an answer that we have this assurance that it's not going to spike, and it's not going to spike within a particular community.
Thank you, Marla. We appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Before I introduce Scott, I'll just remind everybody that the chat comments that you are providing, we'll be sharing that with our speaker panels, including Commissioner Greenberg, to get some of these thoughts and ideas so that they can look at them as decision makings going forward on a more statewide aspect. So please, if you have comments or questions, please be adding them into the chat. We will be saving that and forwarding that onto our panelists. So with that, I introduce you to Scott Stoller. Scott is our Colorado State Fair General Manager. He's been with us here in, at the Colorado State Fair since April of 2018. Before that, he served as the CEO of the Silver Dollar Fair in Chico, California from 2009. And prior to that, and I did not know this until today, Scott. Scott was the General Manager of the Benton County Fair and Rodeo in Corvallis, Oregon, which I used to live in Corvallis too, Scott. It's like our paths keep bumping into each other. So I give you guys Scott Stoller.
I don't believe that you lived in Corvallis because you pronounce it wrong, but that's okay. So I want to echo what MJ said. Put whatever you want in the comments that you need any type of help with guidance in there. And Marla probably could echo this. Most fair associations are needing to write letters to get their message to the state level. We're fortunate enough to have the Commissioner of Ag who's willing to listen to this and be not an official spokesperson, but share the message of what fairs in Colorado need. So please take advantage of this opportunity. And I think a lot of you know this, but in Colorado, the governor doesn't have authority to take executive action beyond 30 days. So you're not going to see an executive order that says we can't have mass gatherings in July from the governor. The one thing we could get out of this is some type of guidance from state health. It won't be a mandate, but it would be guidance. So please use this platform to be able to get that message up to the state level. And one other thing before I get into state fair update, Marla will never say this, and she's one of the best advocates and spokesperson for the fair industry across the world. She'll never ask you to become a member of IAFE, but for those of you that are, you can speak to this. There's more resources just alone on their website for the low fee, and I'm not doing a sales pitch here, but it's well worth your money, especially right now, because there's so many tools on there that you could just search and get the answer. And that's just the tip of the iceberg for IAFE. So if you're not a member, please explore that because it will benefit your fair, and it's money well spent even in these tight times. All right, with my pitches behind, I'll give you just a quick update on the state fair because I know we're over on time. A lot of you are aware that we've switched from retinal scanning for market animals to DNA. You should see some information on our website soon on how you can get the DNA kits so you can gather the samples, and this will be self-administered because of the social distancing. So that will be coming out shortly on our website. We will still take retinal scans if they happen before social distancing went into place. So there is 2 paths to register your livestock animals. For the fair itself, we're looking kind of at 3 paths. Right now, we're planning for a full fair, and I saw in the comments that there's Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. Our Plan A is to have a state fair. And on June 24th, we have a board meeting, and we're going to really work closely with our health officials to make the decision if we can go with Plan A, and that's to have a full fair. We have moved everything that involves taking money or entries or other things aside from DNA and retinal to after that June 24th date, just to keep things clean. So you won't see us taking any entries for competitive exhibits prior to July 1. You won't see us selling any concert tickets prior to July 10th. So just that's Plan A. Plan B, and C, we've started a working group with our staff for alternate fair scenarios. If we can't have a fair, we'd still like to, and currently we have funding to continue having our 4-H and FFA programs, whether those be Plan A or Plan B would be having a live show similar to what Weld County is doing, where it would just be exhibitors and just be buyers, and we probably have a virtual or a online auction component built into that. Plan C would be going full virtual. These are all concepts right now. Right now, we're working off all three of these. June 24th is really our date where we're gonna kind of pick a path, whether it's A or we're looking at B or C. The other thing that greatly affects your state fair in Colorado is we're heavily tied to the state. So all of our planning is contingent on funding. And the state budget, I think everybody saw in the news today, there's a $3.4 billion shortfall between this year and next year that they need to fill that gap. We're hoping that we'll come through this decently unscathed, but we'll know a better picture of what that is probably by Memorial Day. So the next 2 weeks are really going to be a telling sign for state fair. So Plan A, Plan B, Plan C could be adversely affected if for some reason. And I'm not asking for support. We have a communication plan in place and we have our advocates in place. But I think all of us need to prepare for that big haircut we're about to get if we rely on any type of public funding. And with that, like I said, I'd keep it pretty short. That's a high-level view of what's going on at the state fair. And I would think, MJ, you'd probably want to open up to questions for everybody rather than just me at this point, just because of the time crunch.
Okay, thank you, Scott. We appreciate that. So as we said, just type those questions in. I know Jeremiah is going through those to read those.
Yeah, I've been, sorry, excuse me there. I see some people are asking about the DNA kits, Scott. They need to contact the state fair, correct?
Yeah, they'll be through our website. There's going to be a platform on there, and they are correct. June 1st, they'll be available, and you'll go on there, and there is going to be a fee of, I believe, $5, and then there's a transaction fee of $1. So if you buy 3 of them, it's going to cost you $16. And then you'll send those in by, I believe, July 1st is the deadline that we have on that, but all that will be on our website here shortly.
What was the cost?
What
was the cost for retinal scanning? What was the cost for retinal scanning before this?
I don't know if there was a charge at the local level. That was handled by, the county level. So I would put that to somebody who's administered those.
MJ, I have a question for Dr. Stokes. This is Byron Pelton, County Commissioner.
Okay, Byron.
Dr. Stokes, you talked about the relationships between CSU Extension agents and the local counties, and I appreciate you bringing that up because, here in Logan County, we have really good relationships with our Extension agents. But I just wanted to make sure that, and I know it's been discussed before, but I just wanted to make sure that, like, at the last moment that CSU or 4-H or any of that stuff doesn't come up with some special rules for their agents. Because a lot of us counties, we pay either half or full salaries of the agents and have those partnerships with them. And I know that if, like, at the last minute or that sort of thing happens, and there's special rules for the 4-H agents to have to adhere by from CSU, that I don't think our constituents would take that really very good. So I just wanted to make sure that won't be the case.
Yeah, and I mean, Logan County is a great example where we've been great partners. And so, I think as the fairs move forward, it has to be a partnership with us. I mean, when it comes to the educational aspects and 4-H and the aspects that Extension is a part of with the fair, I mean, we have been, and we always maintain, we will be a good partner, you know. And so I do think what somebody had mentioned earlier, I mean, if there's something suddenly that changes with safety or public health aspects, we have to be responsive. But I know that you're thinking the same things. And I know as a county, you want to be equally responsive to safety of your communities, just like we do. So, you know, I find that I think that we'll be very much in step and, you know, with y'all. And, you know, as long as we're following those same principles, and I think what's driving y'all is the same thing that's driving us. And at the end of the day, the safety of our communities are most important. And so, so yeah, I mean, I don't see any challenges with that as long as we're staying within those same kind of principles. And, you know, I don't anticipate this at all. But, you know, if a community, if something were to happen to where a community wanted to take a show outside of their public health recommendations, I think we would have a problem there. That's where we could run into some conflict, because we have to uphold those safety recommendations from public health. So I think, you know, and again, I completely expect and have found to be true that our commissioners have the same commitment. So I don't see that being a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Question I have, and I had before, but didn't get to ask, was it sounds like on this call that everybody's good with letting local authorities, the Fair Board, the commissioners, and the county health departments determine whether or not we have a fair. And if that's correct, could we get something in writing from Commissioner of Ag in Colorado, as well as the governor's office, to say that that is the case, so that we're not stepping outside of any bounds? We want to adhere to all public policies, but it would be good to have something in writing to base our guidelines for our fair off of.
I can take this one. So like I said, the governor in this state, because of the Constitution, during an emergency only has an authority to mandate for 30 days at a time. So the date that he issues an executive order under an emergency, that's only good for up to 30 days. And then at the end of those 30 days, he can let it lapse, or he can choose to set the same one or a new executive order along those lines. And that's in the Constitution. He doesn't have anything in his toolbox that can go out more than 30 days. So you have to wait until that window. And unfortunately, right now we're sitting in a window where that 30 days started on the 26th of April, and it's still ticking. So we're looking at the 27th of April or 27th of May. A lot of people ran it through the end of May, but if you talk to your county officials, you're only going to see guidance through the end of May, because that's the only thing that the governor has the ability to set as a mandate. And in June 1, he can make it stricter if he wants to. Right now, he's been pretty lenient in the fact that, lenient, I say, in the way that it's implemented. It's not what the governor says or stricter by local authorities. It's what the governor says or stricter by the local authorities, or if the county can prove it, it could also be looser than what the governor's setting. So right now, it is 100% with the local authorities to make that decision, but that only goes out 30 days.
Okay. And thank you for that answer, Scott. And I guess what I would ask in response to that is, maybe for you or maybe for some others on the call, but for the kids that, you know, we've already had to purchase animals for the fair. Some of them are expensive, some of them aren't. And if the governor does come out with a determination that there are no fairs this fall, what happens to those kids that have put maybe thousands of dollars out on the line, hours and hours of work for those animals? What happens for those kids?
I don't know if I'm supposed to keep talking or not, but I would say if that's the case, that's where your community needs to step up. And if if you're following what other communities are doing, there's a lot of fairs that happened in the South and the West in the spring that were shut down mid-process or couldn't have have their fair. And I'd really look to those fairs in Florida, Arizona, California, some in Texas, and see how the community stepped up to help out those kids. And this is much bigger than what the governor can do. I mean, this is a worldwide pandemic. There's not going to be an answer if we're in the same situation like the Houston Stock Show was, or the other fairs in Texas and Florida and California, Arizona that happened when all of this, hit the fan essentially. There was no choice for those youth, and you'll see story after story of the community stepping up to help those kids. Was it 100%? I don't know. Probably not, but that's where community comes in.
And that's fair. And once again, appreciate the answer. But in a community that is 95% agriculture driven, with the agriculture economy being depressed right now, that's pretty tough for people to step up and just, help like they do at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, with Houston being such a large city compared to a town of 1,500 people. It's a different comparison than Houston versus, say, Burlington, Colorado.
I'll agree with you there, Michael. It is a difference. And, from everything that we do as a whole, we see in our communities, when we're in time, our communities come through for us. We've seen it time and time again. And we just hope that if by chance this is what happens, we hope that the communities come through for these kids and stuff like that. Unfortunately, none of us, any CSU, State Fair, anything, I don't think there's any one of us that can sit here and guarantee you that those kids will be completely taken care of. We wish there would be, but.
And I think that goes to, for us and for the 4-H youth aspects of it and the parts that we're involved in. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we want for our youth participating and while they're in their projects, and we know that they've worked hard, and it's important for families and for our community members. So, we're going to really work with you to try to make it the best experience as possible. And it is going to look different this year. And it's unfortunate. I wish we could predict the future too. And, but, we want it to be a good experience. I think there's a lot of opportunity with our youth and with our communities, and how we pull together and how we address this as communities, just to to speak to that community aspect of it. I think there's a lot to offer there in the development of our youth, and for them to see how we do pull together. I think there's a lot to be learned from that. I mean, I look back to growing up, and I grew up in South Louisiana. We would get hit by hurricanes, and I know people would say, "Why do you live there?" But it's just part of life there, and the way the communities come together and help each other out. And I know that really influenced me. And so I think there's a lot we can do here, and for this to be a good experience for our youth. And I think the uncertainty, as Marla mentioned, is definitely true. But one thing that we can count on are our communities and how we pull together, and we always do that. And it's been really impressive. And so I guess that's one way, at least maybe for us to think about it a little bit, is just we'll do everything we can so that we can have a great fair experience. But the bigger picture of it, of how we pull together this year, is really important. So I definitely appreciate that, and been seeing that so far throughout all of this. It's been really incredible to see how our communities have pulled together.
Thanks, Ashley. One more thing. I know that there's been a lot of comments. We'll be posting these comments as well. There's been a lot of comments and answers about packing plants and processors and stuff like that. Struggling with that. We know that that's going to be an issue throughout the entire fair season. So please go through and read these comments that are being made, because there is some good information that other folks have been putting in to help mitigate that. So Scott says that they have a new Facebook group for livestock exhibitors, and that's going to be a great way to get DNA and entry process questions updated. Marla mentioned the communication with public health about the value of county fairs and the vision for possible alternate competitive 4-H events. How can the fair families support communicating the values of fair and events?
I might chime in on that. I think this is an excellent time to utilize your social media presence to make a plan of pushing out information. Talk specifically, quantify. Go back in your fair records, talk about the number of volunteers, talk about the dollars that you're turning over in the community, talk about scholarships, talk about the lives that you're impacting, pull some pictures from your archives and put those out on social media. I would bet in every fair board out there, you've got somebody, maybe somebody's kid, but they love social media and they love the fair and they would love to be doing that. That's one of the ways that you can build support, is to collect these stories and use the power of social media right now to push them out. I tell you, every day I have to look at news releases and video stories and announcements of fairs that are having to cancel. And I have seen some videos that will literally break your heart, but also make you smile to celebrate what fairs really are about. We have the power of messaging something very, very powerful through what we do every single day, every single year through history, by providing a platform for children to learn about agriculture, to experience what it means to win, but also to lose, to learn responsibility. That's powerful. Guys, we had a theme through IFE last year that fairs change lives every single day. And I believe it. I have witnessed it. Those are the stories that I think we can share right now to communicate within your stakeholder base, how powerful your fair is, the good that it does in your community, economically, socially, culturally. Fairs change lives. Find those stories and tell them. I think it's powerful.
Thanks, Marla. Do we have any other questions right now before we kind of wrap this up?
My name's Tom Donnelly. I'm a Larimer County Commissioner. Can I ask a question to Dr. Stokes?
Go for it.
Thanks. Dr. Stokes, I think you're probably in receipt of a letter from the Larimer County Board of Commissioners where we were asking for some additional direction about interactions between our extension department and our 4-H leaders with people in the community. You talked about it a little bit already, but could you go into a little bit greater detail? For us, it's going to be very challenging, even if we do get some kind of lessening of these public health restrictions about gatherings, because we have a really large 4-H program. We actually have the largest 4-H program in the state of Colorado. We have over 225 kids just in shooting sports. We need every one of those kids to shoot 4 times to practice, to demonstrate that they can operate safely before they go into the fair. And we're going to need to have our 4-H leaders obviously engaged in some aspect of their training, just in that one area, for instance. But across the different areas that 4-H really provides youth services too. And so can you go into a little bit greater detail maybe about how you think that's going to look, and what opportunities are going to be around for like mine, as far as being able to get our leaders back with our volunteers and engaged with our membership in the event that we can have a fair? Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that question. And I know that even just having the fairgrounds, I think, is a bit of a challenge right now in Larimer County too. So I understand what y'all are up against, and being able to have the fair for Larimer County at all, and then what it can look like too. So so yeah, that's the guidance that I was just able to get today. I know that some of the restrictions that with CSU that we've been working through are through the Colorado Department of Higher Education because of some of the stipulations that they put forward for our activities as a higher education institution for Colorado, right? So we were working through those to make sure that we were not going to be violating any of the restrictions from that department. So that's what I was presenting earlier tonight, is that we do now have permission that starting with May 16th, we will be able to then to do some of these face-to-face types of things that, obviously with shooting sports as an example where, we cannot expect a youth to be able to participate in any kind of a competition or anything like that without actually, learning how to do this, by holding and practicing, right? And so that's a good example where this limited face-to-face where we're really found as public health guidelines on how many people can be together and how we can do that safely so that the youth can learn and can build their skills so that they can be safe with it. So that's exactly what we've been working towards, was to make sure that if we're able to follow your local public health guidance and then being able to do some of those face-to-face activities starting with May 16th, we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to be going against other restrictions that were coming from the Department of Higher Education. So that's what we've been working through, and we were able to gain that. And like I said, it's hot off the presses to y'all tonight. I'm going to be providing some more information to Extension first thing tomorrow on this. And so I'm really glad that we could get this done. And because we do have to be careful as an institution, and that we are following the guidance from the governor's office, from public health, from the Department of Higher Education with that. So yeah, I think we are in a good place now to be able to work with our counties and work with those local public health officials and with that. So I think that's good. And again, I think we know a lot of the challenges that our counties are facing. And I know it's a tough decision for our commissioners on being able to make the decision about fairs. But where we come into that with the extension aspects and with the 4-H aspects, again, we want to be good partners with that. And because we know that there's a lot that you're having to answer and a lot of challenges in all of our communities. So yeah, so we're eager to keep working with you.
All righty. Is there any other questions for any of our panelists? We'll give one more quick shout. I know this has we've extended longer than we normally do, but I do want to thank everybody for hanging with us. So one last call for questions. And with that, go ahead.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I don't know if this is helpful to anyone. Pueblo County has one of the earliest fairs. So we've kind of been in the decision-making process a little quicker than some others. We wrote a proposal, a written proposal, and sent it into the county to review. Went to them Friday. So if you go through that process of looking for an appeal process to be able to do something, your health department and your county commissioners are going to want a written proposal. And it goes to your county management, county commissioners. They run it through your county health department to see what happens. So as some of you think about that, be thinking about how to break that apart. We took every section of our fair, broke down what we would do for different sections. And it was, if you haven't been to Pueblo County Fair, it is surprisingly small for the size of our county. And it was still a 17-page proposal just to get through the basics of youth type events, because we just flat out said we were not going to do open class or entertainment. So just food for thought as you go forward.
Thanks, Michael. Well, with that, I want to say thank you to MJ, to Scott, to Ashley, to Jean, to Marla, and to Commissioner Greenberg for all joining us tonight. We appreciate your time. We know all your time is valuable, so we really appreciate you coming together with us to have this discussion. And I want to thank everybody. We'll upload this again to our website. We'll send it out through some email links, and we will upload the chat as well. So we'll leave the chat open for a few more minutes and let anybody else do that. But I want to say thank you again from the Colorado Association of Fairs and Shows. We appreciate you guys joining us, and you guys all have a good night. Thank you.